Hi everyone. I've been talking a lot about gauge lately, but really when it comes to crocheted gauge, I think the best way to learn is to do. So I wanted to show you how I actually would measure gauge on a crochet swatch. So here I have a double crochet swatch, and I'm going to show you how I would go about measuring my stitch gauge and my row gauge. When you're measuring gauge, it's helpful to kind of be able to read your stitches and recognize like this is a double crochet, this is a double crochet, this is a double crochet. So I've got my swatch laid out nicely on a flat, hard surface, a table. And I'm going to take my tape measure and I'm just going to lie it down along one of the rows of stitches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a part of the stitch to kind of line up the zero with. So you see this leg of the stitch? I'm going to line up my zero with that leg of the stitch. And as I go down, I'm going to look for that same part of another stitch kind of lining up with one of my other inch or quarter inch or half inch lines. So if I look here, the 3-inch line kind of lines up right there too. So I'm going to count how many stitches there are from the 0 to the 3-inch mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my stitch gauge here is 10 stitches equals 3 inches. Now I want to be sure, and sometimes gauge can vary a little, so I'm going to move my tape measure to another row, and I'm going to do the same thing and see if it's the same. Let's see, I'm going to start the 0. Lay it out straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and yep, we get the break at 10 right at the 3-inch line. So 10 stitches equals 3 inches. Now let's look at row gauge. I'm going to line up the 0 right at the base of a row. And I'm going to start counting rows up till I get to a nice like rounded number of inches or quarter inches or 1/8 of an inch. So 1 row, 2 rows seems to hit at about 1 inch. But as I've talked about before, measuring gauge over 1 inch is dangerous. So I want to keep measuring. 1, 2, 3, 4 rows is at 2 inches. Now, if you look here, it looks like 6 inches goes a little past the, 6 rows goes a little past the 3 inches. That's because we have the top of the stitches here and they haven't been worked into yet. So let me move this down a little and count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows hits at 3 inches. So yes, that's equivalent to 2 rows to the inch, but I can write that down however I want. 2 rows equals 1 inch, 4 rows equals 2 inch, 6 rows equals 3 inch. That would be my row gauge. And that's for a double crochet swatch. Now I'm going to show you how I would measure gauge on a single crochet swatch. So I'm going to be looking at the little V's that each stitch makes. I'm going to line up my 0 line on my tape measure right between 2 of those V's. I'm going to look for a point where the line on my tape measure seems to also line up between 2 of those V's, like right here at 3.5 seems to line up between these 2 V's. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 stitches and 3.5 inches. I want to double check, so I'm going to move up to a different row and line it up there and see if I can get the same number of stitches in 3.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in 3.5. So that's good. Now let's look at rows. I'm going to put the 0 mark right between 2 rows and start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seems to hit right about the inch mark, but let's keep going. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hits right about the 2-inch mark. So it looks like 10 rows and 2 inches. I can move my swatch and move my tape measure and double check over here. So let's line that up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's close. Like I feel like the 10 is just a little bit above the 2. 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, it looks by the time I get to 3 inches, it's closer to 14 stitches, 14 rows rather, in 3 inches rather than 10. So that's why you want to measure over a larger distance. So I think 14 in 3 inches is right. Let me move it again just because I've gotten different measurements, so I want to make sure. Line up my 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I think when the fabric is smoothed out, it's closer to 14 rows in 3 inches. So that's what I'm going to go for my row gauge. But this is how I would measure gauge on a swatch, how I line it up. So you can see what it actually looks like when I do it. If you want more great tips for crochet and knitting as well as free patterns, check out my website, www.thelindsaylife.com, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube.